September 6th, 6 p.m. The September Historic Preservation Commission. Can we get a roll call?
Chairman Evan Goodwin.
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Carletha Frazier. Here. Commissioner Carrie Schmelter.
Here.
Commissioner Will Gunther. Commissioner Debbie Wonder. Here. Commissioner Jim Hess. Commissioner Joe DePaul.
Here.
Quorum. All right, notice regarding adjournment. The Historic Preservation Commission will not hear new items after 9:30 p.m. unless authorized by a majority vote of the commission members present. Items which have not been heard before 9:30 p.m. will continue to the next regular meeting or a special meeting date as determined by the commission members. Notice regarding public comments. Every member of the public who is recognized to speak shall address the chairman and in speaking avoid disrespect to commission, staff, or other members of the meeting. State your name and address when speaking for the record, please. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Looking for an adoption of the agenda as written.
I motion to adopt the agenda as written.
Second? I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. And the agenda has been adopted. Now we're going to adopt the minutes for the July meeting. Looking for a motion.
I motion we adopt the minutes from the July meeting.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Minutes are adopted for the July meeting. Public comments for items not on the agenda. I understand we do have a public comment.
We have public comment for item number 2.
Do we want to hear that now? Still doesn't matter.
We'll probably just do it at the
Okay.
item.
There's no old business, as I understand, so we'll move on to new business, which is item number 1.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Oh, and we're recusing.
Yes. Joe is recusing himself as he had some work that he did with the HARB on this project. That's not what I was looking for. Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight before us we have an application. It is a request by Ernie and Andrea Susie they are the owners, so on behalf of themselves, for the Historic Preservation Commission to approve the following application. It is a certificate of appropriateness to allow the construction of a new 2-story single-family structure of approximately 2,295 square feet and a carriage house of approximately 803 square feet located at 7 Blue Crab, which is here in the Old Town Bluffton Historic District. It is zoned Neighborhood General, and it is Lot 24 in the Tabby Roads development. As you all are familiar, or potentially not for those newer members, the Tabby Roads development has setbacks that are determined by the development plan rather than those which are outlined for you in the Unified Development Ordinance. So these setbacks for this site are based on the development plan and have been met. They're shown on your screen here with the dashed line that runs around the outside of the property here. This property is facing Bruin Road, even though it is addressed off Blue Crab because that's where the access is gained. So you can see Bruin at the front of it, then you have Blue Crab here, and then this is Pearl Street that runs along the side. So you've got 3 sides of street elevations, the primary being Bruin Road. They have attached an attached carriage house, meaning it shares a heated wall here. It is an unheated garage, but this is the outside wall of that. So this is the square footage that counts towards their carriage house and their primary structure. It has a porch that wraps nearly the whole way around the front, left side, and rear of the house, with the exception of this small area that is the master suite on the rear here, between the carriage house and the primary structure. The second floor is significantly smaller on the primary structure than it is the first. However, it does technically classify as that 2-story structure. And then there is the second story of the carriage house, which is a studio-style accessory dwelling unit here. So this is the second floor plan here. It does not connect to the primary structure on the second floor, so it only connects here. You can see the dashed line below for where that first floor is on that. You can actually see it even better on the roof plan here. So this is the roof plan with the first floor below. They've provided us a really nice isometric here that shows you how that connects. So you can see this portion here is where that first floor ties into the carriage house. Because of the configuration of this lot, it was going to be very close, and this connection of the two structures is going to help with some of the water issues that may arise if they were not connected but still located as close as they would need to be in order to fit on this site. This is the front elevation, so this is what you would see if you're standing on Bruin Road. They have their front entry here, as well as a secondary entrance that is set back because this is on the side porch here. They have a set of windows that is centered between the columns. And then because there is a drainage easement that runs along Bruin Road, or it runs on their lot, but facing Bruin Road, they have moved their stairs to the side here to accommodate that. They have indicated that the railings that are on the side elevations will continue along this front elevation. They removed them so we could see the windows behind it. So you'll see that on the side here. They'll look just like this, but run the front elevation as well. So this is the rear elevation. This is the side that would be facing Blue Crab Street. As you can see, this is the little carriage house here with the stairs. And then this bump out right here is what the garage doors will be open to when I flip to the next elevation, or the second next elevation. This is the right elevation, which faces the now vacant, but will be residential, presumably lot that is in the Tabby Roads development. So currently it is a vacant lot, and then one beyond that is the blue house that is also a Blue Crab address facing room. So this is that elevation. This is that master suite where you can see it ties into the carriage house. And then this is the left elevation. So this is the one facing Pearl Street, a secondary entrance. And this is where you would pull in off of Blue Crab into the driveway, and you'd turn into the garage doors here. So you can see the porch that wraps around. This portion beyond the stairs has been screened in. So there's a portion that's screened in, but the front end corner that addresses the Pearl-Bruin intersection is left unscreened so that it better addresses that corner. Your packet includes a lot more information. However, I have included just the window and door details that are exterior. So they have a bunch of interior doors, and I left those off to make it a little bit bigger on your screen. But you can see that they are metal clad and wood doors that are proposed for the exterior, with the exception of the garage door, which we do not have material standards for, but is appropriately designed for the structure. This is the screen porch detail, as well as the screen door that they've proposed, the typical window and door details for the both interior and exterior views of that. So they've included all of that information. I know I fly through these, so I am happy to go back and address any questions that you all have, but these are the window details. As you can see, there are a lot of different windows here. However, the proportions of the windows are very similar. They have different trim details based on the proximity on the building. So there are several that are actually the same dimensions and the same window light proportions. They just are detailed a little bit differently. So they have all been called out separately here. And then we have the service yard HVAC enclosure here, section through the rafter. This is the baluster that would be going on the front elevation as well as the sides. And then you have your section through the wall. I've taken a look at all of those materials and dimensions, and they do meet our ordinance requirements. This is the canopy coverage. It was found in your landscape plan. I blew it up so you could see it a little bit bigger. It looks like this is grass, but that's actually where the canopy goes to on these live oaks here and here. And then there's an existing tree that is in this front corner here. So you can kind of see, if you zoom in really close, that there is a curve to that, because those are the canopies that are existing in the case of this tree and proposed with the case of this, and they do exceed that 75% requirement. And then this is the landscape plan. Again, you can see the existing tree at the front here, proposed trees here, as well as here, but these are the canopy trees that you are looking at, and then some additional landscaping for foundation buffers, etc. The planting schedule is on the left-hand side of the screen. As this is a certificate of appropriateness, the HPC considers the 8 review criteria which are set forth in section 318.3 of our Unified Development Ordinance when they review them, and they are authorized to approve the application as submitted by the applicant, approve the application with conditions, or deny the application as submitted by the applicant based on these findings. Town staff has reviewed the application before you and has found that with the following condition, staff finds that it meets those requirements, but is looking for your determination on whether it does the same. So staff has found that if a tree removal permit is pulled for the trees that are larger than 14 inches in diameter at breast height, it would meet the requirements of the ordinance. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. The Susies are here to speak on behalf of the project and answer hopefully any questions that you have there.
My only concern is when I'm looking at the front elevation that the triple window doesn't line up underneath anything, whether it's centered under the window, it's just off center of the dormer above. And I thought it was trying to center it in the kitchen, but it's really not even centered on the kitchen, it's centered in the island. I mean, it's just something I glanced and I thought was just off center. I don't know that there's much to do with it because it would change the column space and everything else. It's just something that caught my eye. Because it's really not, the windows are not centered in the kitchen itself, it's centered on the island.
That's something they were working through early on. Some conceptual ones, trying to balance the spacing and the symmetry on the porch itself versus do you do it in the kitchen? Where does the front door go? I know there was a lot of thought going into it. It personally doesn't bother me as much, just because at ground level I don't think you'll notice it quite as much. But it's worth noting.
Well, I agree. It doesn't bother me that much. It's just something that first thing that caught my eye.
Okay.
Is that there was no visual alignment of windows. Even if they just shifted them to get 3 to line under 3, but that might look funny, not centered under the 4, so it's.
Any?
It doesn't bother me. I mean, I noticed it as well, but it's.
Any other thoughts or discussion on any of the remaining drawings? Okay. I had a couple questions on the porch wall section. Do you have that in the presentation? That's the house.
Looking at the columns?
No, there's just on the porch wall section that's in the full set of submittals. There's no yes on that sheet. So 2 things on the foundation sheet. Back up. More there. So on the porch section, there's no there's a brick finish called out on the elevations as the border for the porch, but it's not shown. If you scroll up a little bit, it's not shown right there on the actual foundation detail. So I just wonder if they could add that in there to show how that condition's going to be addressed.
The architect said the program. I don't know why.
The architect said her program will not allow her to do it. So she was able to put it in on the picture, but she couldn't put it on there for some reason. I don't know, because we had said something about to her.
Yeah.
She said, well, we have the detail on, the picture itself, but on that, she said for some reason their program,
Well,
there's a little bit of a glitch.
that is kind of important because right now Tabby stays underneath the porch. Brick's going to stick out past it.
Yeah. She should be able to add that.
We had asked her about it
Yeah.
and all.
I would push back on that because I think whoever, the masons or whoever's pouring the foundation is going to want to know how far back to do that that recess so that the brick can sit where it's supposed to with the overhang outside that tabby finish. And then also on the foundation itself, if you see the measurements on that front porch where it has a little 4-inch, where it's showing a brick finish on the porch. So if you zoom in and to the right, that little hatch right there, that little 4-inch piece outside the CMU block is showing brick, but it's a tabby stucco foundation. So that just needs to be clarified and
Yeah, it's just a brick on the top with this stuff.
yeah, exactly. So those are the only two things I was going to make comments about, just having those included in the conditions. But very minor. Everything else looks great, and we appreciate you guys looking at the changes we discussed at HPRC.
Yeah, come on,
Attaching the garage and some other things. It looks really good.
Thanks, too.
All right. Any other discussion? Looking for a motion then? Or I can make the motion?
I motion we approve providing the number one is met through the tree removal permit, and the wall section is addressed with the brick versus the tapping.
Okay, for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And against? Okay, pass.
Thank you.
I'll follow up with you tomorrow.
Okay.
So embarrassing.
Good evening, Commissioners. The next item we have up is the applicant Melanie Marks with her husband Eugene as owners request that the HPC approve the following application. This is the designation or the removal of a contributing resource. You're making a recommendation to Town Council to remove the designation of the historic 1,516 square foot contributing resource identified as the Joyner House located at number 9 Bruin Road in the Old Town Bluffton Historic District, Zone Neighborhood Core HD. This is actually a little bit different than what you're normally used to seeing. This is not a COFA, but under the UDO, section 2.2.6.E.4, I practiced that all day today, you are permitted to review and recommend to Town Council resources to be either designated or added to the list or removed from being designated as a contributing resource to the Old Town Bluffton Historic District. Note, in particular, tonight you're not making a decision whether or not to add or subtract something from the contributing resources list. You're making a recommendation to Town Council for their to take that action. Just for you, some basic background information, this is a map showing the location and the zoning maps of this subject property. Because I'm a historical preservation type person, I'm showing you some historic photographs. This is the house from July 2008, the house from April 2022, current conditions from last month. We did reach out to some local preservation groups asking for their opinion on this project. The Palmetto Bluff Conservancy got back to us quickly and said, based on the definition of a contributing resource, we recommend removing 9 Bruin Road as a contributing resource since the building is essentially new construction. All the pertinent information is in your staff report. I'm here to answer any specific questions that you might have. The applicants are also here to address any questions that you might have. We do have public comment on this topic. I will ask your direction which you would like to hear first.
Why don't we go public comment?
All right.
Come on up.
Joan Hayward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the HPC. I'm Jenny Hayward, and I live at 95 Boundary Street, and I'm here to discuss the Joyner House. In the 1994, the 2001, 2008, 2019, and also on the 1996 application. No, it's not on the application. Number 107 is the Joyner House. The site number is number 046-0107, and you have a copy of the 1994 HRI, or the form from the survey, in your packet. That's the oldest HRI. The address is 9 Bruin Street. As we all know, this structure no longer exists. It has been demolished with certain parts used in the new construction permitted by the town of Bluffton. As you know, HRI stands for Historic Resource Inventory. The HRI for 9 Bruin Street, number 107, the joiner house, should not be removed from any of the surveys because it was there in 1994, 7, 8, and 19. But it should be marked demolished, no longer exist, and it should not be a contributing structure. Historic resource inventories do change from time to time. It happens. It just hasn't happened here. Eccentricities was demolished. It's no longer on the contributing structure list, as an example, and that was maybe 10 years ago. As HPC members, it is your responsibility to maintain a correct list of contributing structures. Therefore, I'm asking you to verify that survey number 107, and the real number is 046-0107. It's the joiner house. It is not contributing because it is no longer in the historic resource inventory. The joiner house is gone. Survey number 046-0107 should be marked on its form, the HRI form, no longer exist, no longer contributing, no longer part of the Bluffton Historic Resource Inventory. I thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I guess we can do any questions for staff.
Oh, we have one more public comment.
Sorry.
Robert Jones.
Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen of the Bluffton Historical Preservation Commission, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Robert Jones. I'm the Executive Director of Historic Bluffton Foundation, and I live at 22 Bridle Path Lane in Bluffton. Just for your knowledge, I have both a degree in history and a master's in historic preservation. Just to let you know where I'm speaking from. I stand before you today to emphasize the critical importance of preserving the integrity of our historic district, particularly by advocating against the movement of listed structures, even within the same lot. Our listed structures are not just physical artifacts, they are windows into our past, carrying with them the stories, craftsmanship, and architectural heritage of our community. When we relocate these structures, we disrupt the very essence that defines our historic districts. The integrity of these districts is a delicate balance, and any altercation, especially the physical movement of a structure, threatens that balance. Moving a listed structure, even on the same lot, can have far-reaching consequences. It alters the context in which the building was originally placed, affecting its relationship with neighboring structures and the overall streetscape. Such actions lead to the loss of historical accuracy and diminish the charm that draws residents and visitors alike to our historic areas. Furthermore, it's not just about bricks and mortar, it's about preserving the sense of place and the atmosphere that makes our historic district unique. The authenticity and ambiance of these areas are what set them apart from the modern world. Moving a structure erodes that authenticity and disrupts the historical narrative we all cherish. We must carefully consider the long-term consequences of moving listed structures. While change and development are inevitable, and we all know that, we must ensure that our commitment to preserving the historical integrity of our district remains unwavering. Let us remember that our past enriches our present and shapes our future. By protecting the historical context of our structures, we honor the heritage that makes Bluffton so special. This brings me to the Joiner Cottage. The foundation believes that the Joiner Cottage should be removed from the list of locally contributing structures due to its recent deconstruction and relocation, making it no longer eligible for preservation within its original context. Thank you for your time and dedication to preserving our cherished historic district. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Any
from
questions
the
for
commission?
staff? Yes.
Well, I have a question. Why do you want to remove it from it?
I will defer to the applicant for that question.
Would the applicant like to present or answer any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Those of y'all who I've not had the pleasure to introduce myself to yet, because we do have a few new members on the HBC. I'm Richardson LaBruce with Finger Melnick, Brooks and LaBruce, and we serve as attorneys for the town of Bluffton, but we are here today serving as attorneys for the HBC and here to answer any questions that y'all may have regarding the process, procedure, or the conduct of this meeting. So there is a rules of procedure for the HBC and how to follow on these applications, not particularly the removal of a contributing structure, but just general applications. And so after staff presentation, we should allow the applicant to present, and then any questions that you may have, you may direct to staff and or the applicant as y'all see fit.
Okay. Then we'll have the applicant present if they would.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chairman. My name is Melanie Marks. I live at 55 Flicker Street in Bluffton. I am the applicant who requested to have the Joyner House removed from the contributing structures list for various reasons. When we embarked on this journey, well, let me go back to what Joni said. The house was originally a circa 1930 structure on a different lot on our current lot. And because the data that was done for all four of those historic resource inventories applied to the original structure from 1930, that designation belonged to that structure. It cannot be transferred to a new structure on the same lot. What we have is not reconstruction. We went through a whole gamut of back and forth. The first meeting that we went to, that was it rehabilitation? Was it reconstruction? Was it new construction? Was it, whatever. So reconstruction, let me just reread what was read at that meeting, both of these. The Department of the Interior standards for reconstruction. And I read this at the July 1st meeting we had with HPC. It says the definition for reconstruction is defined as the act or process of depicting by means of new construction the form, features, and detailing of non-surviving, ours was still standing, landscape, building, structure, or object for the purpose of replicating its appearance at a specific period of time. And in the historic location, we moved it. We didn't move it, and I'm going to explain that. We have newly constructed the Joyner House in a different location on the property so as to have more connectivity to the neighborhood. The reconstruction standards establish a limited framework for recreating a vanished or non-surviving building with new materials primarily for interpretive purposes. Now, down at the bottom, I did speak to somebody at SHPO who gave me the preservation hotline number 10 under can new buildings be built in local historic districts, the following. New construction is encouraged to be compatible with the existing district and yet distinct so that residents and visitors alike can tell it is a 21st century addition or building. I believe we have fulfilled that recommendation. Now I'm going to go back to my original notes, which were we were dealing with two structures in the minds of the town. One was the original Joyner House. Then there was new construction. When we asked to move it, we got issued a new permit, a new building permit, which we had to follow code for new buildings. That limited the status of it being a contributing structure because it's a new building now. We were asked to take and use as much of the original fabric as we could from the original property, which we did. We ended up using about 75% of the roof, about 65% of the siding, and about 80% of the bricks. We fulfilled everything that we were asked to do on the new building. We got an email from Richard Spruce, Chief Building Official, on January 30th, 2023, which stated, the look is historic. Fire and life safety must meet new construction because this is new construction. I understand that all windows will be new, all foundation and framing is new, all mechanical, electrical, plumbing will be new. This is new construction made to look historic. As much as possible, definitely no stop work at this time, just wanted you to be aware of issues that could hold you up in the future. The HPC on June 7th, 2023, approved the current windows that were installed, and I don't think I need to rehash exactly what went on with that, but you approved the windows that are in there now. On June 21st, 2023, we were issued our certificate of occupancy. If there were any issues about anything that we had done inappropriately or anything, we would not have been issued our certificate of appropriateness. That meant we met every parameter that the town put on us to do this project, which I believe we did. What I want you to know is that I also spoke to Antonio Aguilar at the National Park Service, who covers the state of South Carolina. When I asked him about the Joyner project, more specifically due to our appeal for the windows, this is how this came up for me to petition to ask to have it removed. He said, if it came before us, we would deny it for tax credits as it's no longer a contributing structure, as its historical integrity no longer exists. He stressed that just because you use some components from the original structure doesn't make it historic. To the contrary, it is a newly constructed structure that is made to look old by using some of the original elements. Further, he stated that new construction does not qualify as a contributing structure to a district. What you have now is a non-contributing structure in a historic district. You will still have oversight on our property by it being in the historic district. So that's not going to be taken away from your purview. What I'm asking is, it's not a contributing structure. If we attach the contributing structure status to the new building that we have sitting there now, we're creating a false sense of history. It's not. It's not the 1930 Joyner house that got listed based on those recommendations back in 1996. And one thing I did want to clarify is that when I sent the letter to Heather and Glenn asking to have the HRI, I wasn't asking to have the HRI forms removed from the book. If you read my email in my attachment with my application, it said I wanted the pages to be stamped that the original structure no longer exists, and that people like me who do this research for a living would be able to come and look and see the original photographs and information that was used for a building that no longer stands. So I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't asking to have it removed and taken out. So to answer your question, why do I want it removed? That's why. Because you can't transfer, you can't transfer the designation from the original structure to this new construction building. They're two different buildings. So I hope I answered your question.
Can I ask another?
Sure.
Okay. When we approved the moving, what word did we use? Rehabilitation, reconstruction? What word did we put on that? Because to me, it's going to open a Pandora's box that we allowed you to move this historic structure, and now it's not historic. It's gone. So we might as well have demolished it.
Well, that was a Pandora's box because a lot of people wanted to know how it was demoed. And you're saying what percentage of the old building is now total percentage? Not
we salvaged about, well, I'll have to go back to minutes. About 75% of the roof. We had to replace the roof.
80% bricks, 60 siding, right?
Yeah, the only, Mr. Marks, if you could just introduce yourself and make sure we have it for the record.
Thank you. I'm Eugene Marks. I'm her husband and co-owner of the corner. I mean, it's really very simple. 75, the only material salvageable, because we've gone through this, between the dry rot, the black mold, the infestation, you've seen the engineering reports. 75% of the roof, about 65% of the siding, and about 80% of the bricks. That is it. We aspire to get more. We've shown pictures. once we opened it up, it was gone, especially from the fire that was there. They just put drywall over it. I mean, we aspire to use more, but it just was not there, particularly in the context of having to rebuild this with code. We had to do new construction. And you're hitting exactly what the issue is here, which is about the future. And I feel for that. But before I touch on that, the reason why Melanie wants this removed is not because she doesn't respect, it's because she does respect. Either it is or it isn't. You can't be both. You can't be historic and new. So this is about a purist who's saying this isn't. But the main issue here, if I can just say it, is we have to get ahead of this in this town. Because this can happen again. And there's precedent to move. And so we have to get smart looking forward. We didn't get into this to kind of have some manipulation here.
Or to remove it.
Yeah, we went to great lengths. We could have moved it to another lot. So so why is because either something is historic or it isn't. It can't be both. And we can't rationalize with ourselves to call something that it isn't. Our objective here is to keep it as beautiful as it is and have you have oversight. We don't plan to do anything else, but you have oversight over this. I'll stop and answer questions.
I agree that it's new, but when I voted that it's okay to move it and rehabilitate, is that the word that we used?
Rehabilitate. It went back and forth between rehabilitate, replicate, reconstruction.
There's reconstruction.
Yes.
Reconstruction?
Yes.
When I voted, yeah, you can do it, in my mind, okay, we're just preserving this building and moving it. I get building it up to code, everything else, but now we're losing a contributing structure. Bluffton doesn't have that many.
And I agree with you, and I empathize. Believe me, this is not something that I wanted to do, and I'm not doing it out of spite or for anything. The reason I'm doing this is because I am a purist. I work in this environment every day, and for me to be able to go home and know that we did not attach the designation from the original structure to here, because it can't. You cannot transfer a designation, and the structure that's there now, you would have to redesignate that structure and get town council to approve it as a new contributing structure, and it won't qualify because it doesn't meet the criteria. So to answer your question about if this was such a big issue, going from that meeting to where we are today, we had ample emails going back and forth with town staff. We got a certificate of occupancy for this. So that told us that we did everything that we were supposed to do and meet the criteria for what we were said to do. If there was an issue with this language with reconstruction, rehabilitation, replication, whatever you want to call it, then something should have been told to us then.
Well, and the reality is it's just there was and this is learning. I mean, really, I have a lot in my head that we've learned here. It's about learning. There was not a clean handoff from our mindset to the new building department mindset. Building got it as new. There was a mindset here, and we were dealing with two organizations with mindsets, and new construction won. That's what it is. I mean, I think if we rebuilt it on the same site, on the same piece of land, you could rationalize that it's still a contributing resource. But I really think
just to add, and then I think I've covered everything I wanted to. This was the building permit that was put on the property from the building official. And under the description of work, this is what we were told we had to do. Single-story structure to replace existing historic structure on site. New foundation, framing, and mechanical systems. Exterior siding, trim, brick, roofing from existing structure to be used to clad new structure. Historic windows and doors are to be reused in this new structure to the greatest attempt practical. We tried to maintain the historic integrity of the structure. So we had to work with this. So we couldn't reconstruct and do because we were told it's a new construction. So I think the problem is that we were being handled by two different entities, which is the one that watches over the contributing structures, and then the building official who said it has to be code. And I don't know how you can mesh the two.
But the reality is, and then we'll answer some more different questions. The reality is, it's not in the exact same location.
No.
It's a totally new structure. I built some cottages in Stock Farm years ago. I used reclaimed wood, reclaimed roofing. Are those historic? Those historic?
No, that's not a historic building to start with, the construction. I understand completely that it is now new construction, you had to meet code, I get it. I'm just very disappointed, and I'm sorry that I voted it was okay to move it, because we have just lost a historic structure in Bluffton.
Well, you don't have to lose it. You can leave the contributing structure and vote no, and then you will now know that everyone will know that that status that went to the original structure has been applied to the new one.
I'm sorry for interrupting. We have so few left in Bluffton that
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I know the 2019 survey identified 142 new structures that could be included. That's something that we could be working on. This was a unique situation, but that doesn't mean that you can use that status that went with that house to this one.
If I may, I think there's also a concern to what you were speaking about earlier, Eugene, is about the future. And honestly, what you've done with that house is marvelous. You walk by it and you see like a character of like a refreshed version of like history, of culture. And 75, 100 years from now, if it's not protected, somebody can bulldoze it if they don't keep it up. And I think we're all just concerned about who's going to protect it when we're all gone. Because what you've done is fabulous. It really is.
Thank you very much. I can only say two things. I understand, and there's an issue here, because there's people watching saying, how can I maneuver? And I understand that, and I don't want that, and we didn't intend to do that. The second thing is, there's a reality here. I really think there's a reality here. It's not historic structure. And I'm sure that when the National Park Service hears about this, or SHPO or somebody, they're going to say, your credibility is gone. You just can't do it. So to me, this is learning. At least we got a wonderful building. At least we got a wonderful building, and it looks good, and we are shepherds of this, and we have no plans to sell it, but it'll happen. I'm going to go to heaven. No, I'm not sure I'm going to go to heaven. I'm going to go to and this will go to the kids or something. I think the learning here is, what are we going to do about the others? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because there's some, and I don't want to talk about the names, but there's buildings in this town that are falling apart every day. And you know what's going to happen? The same thing's going to come to you, or they're going to move them. And we have to get our arms around this. We don't have to have another one of these things happen.
We're not talking about those right now. We're talking about this. I appreciate that as far as looking for the future of Bluffton and what have you, but that's not what's on the table tonight. Tonight is on the table a building that has been here for years, which
has been demolished, essentially.
Correct.
I can't add any more to what the reality of where we are is.
No, that's all. We can't do anymore except to say that, if you keep the contributing structure status on this new building, then we're sending a false sense of history on this property, because that's not what the HRI forms are representing. And anybody that comes in and looks at those original HRI forms that was done on that house is going to realize it's not the same house.
When you were realizing that materials from the original house, some you could use, some you could not use, when did it occur to you that maybe this is no longer a contributing structure?
It didn't occur to me until I had to come before you for the windows. And then I had to research the windows to understand, are they appropriate, which I knew they were, but I had to let you understand why they were appropriate. And I don't think you were on the board at that time. So it was during that research that I was reaching out to anybody and everybody in the preservation world, colleagues, you name it, I called them. And that's when I got a hold of Antonio Aguilar. After I had watched a lecture that his colleague did in the same department on replacement windows and what's appropriate. So when I talked to to John Sandor, then he told me to talk to Antonio. Antonio's the one that told me it can't be a contributing structure anymore. So it wasn't until then, we had I wasn't going anywhere with this. But when he told me that, then me as a preservationist who works in this field on a regular basis every day, you know what I've done in town. I've done the Garvin House, I've done Campbell Chapel, I've done Burnt Church Distillery. I'm not a hater of preservation. This is more of a technical thing that I had to, once I knew what Antonio told me, I could not sit back and allow it to stay in their conscience. So I hope you understand that's where I'm coming from, that it's nothing other than a technicality that I have a hard time with. And I work with HRIs and these historic surveys on a regular basis. I did the one in our own town, getting it updated in 2008. I'm currently sitting on a historic preservation commission for the town of Ridgefield, Connecticut. We're updating our historic resource inventory. I don't even live in their town. So I'm familiar with them. So it was coming from the preservationist in me, who was a purist, and that's why. But it wasn't until the very end.
Well, I guess we're really not have a say on what's going to happen. We're just supposed to express our opinions and let that be known. So that.
If y'all are ready to start getting into your discussion, and you're finished with the applicant and with staff and any questions you may have, I'd be happy to answer any questions or kind of give you an overview of what your responsibilities are tonight. Some of the things that I've heard, some comments on those, but I'll wait until y'all finish with the applicant's presentation.
Does anybody else have questions for the applicants? No. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff? Or any remarks from staff to hear?
I have no particular comments other than just to reiterate, regardless of what happens at town council, the survey forms will remain archived. They're not going to be destroyed, moved, ripped out, thrown away, any shape or form. So they will stay regardless of whatever decisions are made. But I'm open to any other questions that you might have.
Any questions?
And given the state that the structure is in, our decision today is individual to this project and kind of separate from other properties within the town, correct?
That's right. So you're not, will be setting any kind of precedent tonight by making a recommendation one way or the other. All 84 structures are individuals and will be, if they come in front of you in the future, you treat it as an individual without any precedent going forward.
Knowing what you know now from this project, would you have done it any differently?
Probably a hard question.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard question to answer.
I'm just trying to look for lessons learned.
Yeah, I think that question may be able to be answered in, give me a few more months.
Okay, fair enough.
Would the applicants do anything differently?
Can I come up?
Please.
We did everything we could to get a beautiful end result in the context of the economics that we had to deal with, because it's very expensive to do this, and what the land cost. So I wouldn't have done anything different. Maybe I would. Maybe because our objective is not to have this removed as a contributing resource, we kind of got there and know he's a black and white person and she deals with people that your credibility is important. I think we have learned something. I won't take the time because it's been said this isn't about anything else. I won't go there. We have learned something. We have to protect these resources and be thoughtful and think ahead. Partner with these owners before they make their mind up and the economics are set. If we don't get ahead of this as a town and identify the next 6 or 7 structures that this may happen to, then from a legal standpoint, we're going to be locked. We got to get ahead of this.
The next
has the
will-
resources. The town has the resources to do this. This is not a massive undertaking. There's 10 or 12 of these houses. We should appoint a person, say your job is to make sure that these things are preserved on site to the degree we can. If we don't do that, the law and the inertia is going to drive this to people who might not have the same motive as Millie and I.
So the last thing I have to say, I promise, then I'm going to go sit down. Would I do anything differently? I don't think I would, and I'll tell you why. On July 9th, we had 45 Joyner descendants come and do a blessing of the house. Antoinette Joyner is Reverend Antoinette Joyner. Blessed the house, and they all came. And I have a photograph of all of them sitting on the side porch. That was probably the most wonderful aspect of everything that we've been through, is to see them come in this house knowing it's new, and have Walter Williams say, that was where my bedroom was, or Vivian Joyner saying, I cleaned dishes and did laundry back there in the kitchen. That's the master bedroom now. Those memories are still in this house in a different way. So did we do what we wanted to do? Yes, we promised Dorothy Singleton that we would honor her legacy and her daughter Bernie. So if I did anything wrong, I'm sorry, by opening up this Pandora's box, but I will not say that I would change anything, not after that day. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions for Richardson? Sort of what our next steps are? I guess we have an opportunity to vote on approving or denying.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So tonight y'all have the ability to either vote to recommend that this be removed as a contributing structure to town council, or you can vote to recommend that it not be removed. So ultimately that is your responsibility, is to make a determination as to the recommendation to be submitted to town council. Just a few quick things, because there are some confusing aspects of this. There's a lot of moving parts. Just to provide a little bit of additional context, Mr. Spruce, who is the building inspector, is different than the UDO administrator, who's Heather Collin. Heather and her departments are largely over zoning matters, like the historic district, whereas Richard is the building inspector and is primarily focused on building codes. And while there is some overlap in the building process, statements that Richard has made are not necessarily conclusive. And I just wanted to clarify that because of the title. His title is building inspector. Ultimately, there's no established criteria for the removal of a contributing resource under the town code. So what staff has provided you is what has been used in the past in making this sort of determination. And ultimately, again, it is your decision to make as to a recommendation to town council. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them for you, but I don't wish to interject my opinion into it, so I'll stop.
Any other questions?
I mean, just for general discussion, we open it to just general discussion.
Yeah.
I think this board is charged with protecting Bluffton, what makes Bluffton Bluffton, and the eccentric town that it is. I think the HPC was correct in denying the demolition request up front years back. The small cottages are a lot of what makes the historic fabric of Bluffton, and are important to the town. Looking at the question of, is this still a contributing structure at face value, and considering the support of Historic Bluffton Foundation and Mark's comments, I think that it would be appropriate to remove the listing. I think there's a lot to learn here for the board moving forward, and building a new building is going to require the requirements of the IRC or the IBC, whatever applies. And I think we just need to understand that moving forward and put a little bit more thought into the new uses as people look to reuse these buildings for different things.
Just a question among us. Do you think this all started because it was approved to move the building on the lot?
Absolutely.
That's a good question.
Sorry, the Hayward House has been moved, right? Didn't the Hayward House used to be somewhere else?
Moving a structure is a little bit different than building a new structure. Once you start building a new structure, you have to
Abide by new codes.
everything inside of the skin, which is what they did, needs to have all the tie downs and be modern construction for hurricane protection and things like that. Whereas when you move a structure, you're kind of treating the foundations that way and maybe doing some edits on the inside through the wall, but it's kind of they're sort of two different things. And Richard's comments don't surprise me.
Yes, so I guess had we known, had the board known that moving it would have opened up that box, would it have been approved? Is there something considered moving forward on these projects?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other comments?
I don't, I just,
Discussion?
I see this happening, then I see Deer Tongue's going to come to us next year saying, oh, it's new construction. It just, we're losing what makes Bluffton Bluffton. And I don't understand why I understand that it's new and it's no longer contributing structure.
But a percentage of it is still.
But there's a percentage, and you
the
get the
old
feeling the
building.
joiners loved it. People walk by and feel I'm struggling to understand the benefit of taking it off the list is where I'm struggling.
I agree.
The benefit for the town of Bluffton.
I wholeheartedly agree.
I have trouble with it because I 100% agree that I want to see it protected and I want to see it enjoy the benefits of being a contributing structure, but by the definition, it's not. So I'm torn between Joe's comment where it is not technically, it's new construction, so it can't by definition be a contributing structure.
Even though a large percentage
Even though a
of it
large
is
percentage
still.
of it is, but by definition, I mean,
Yeah.
that's tough.
Well, who does it benefit? What is the benefit of removing it from the list? For the
I think
town?
Melanie said it because she feels like she's falsely saying it's a contributing structure now that it's new construction.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
From a legal perspective, one of the main differences between resources and non-contributing resources in the historic district would be the HPC and town council's discretionary or heightened level of review for demolition projects. So in theory, as soon as this is removed, or if this is removed, the process to demolish would be substantially easier. And so it would lose that level of protection. And what y'all are struggling with is, although somewhat unique to Bluffton, it's certainly not a unique consideration. It's it's a paradox that has been debated for centuries as to you slowly remove a plank of a ship that's sitting in the harbor, and as you remove it, when does it become a new ship? When does it stop being the existing ship? At what point is it new construction? At what point is it a rehabilitation of an existing structure? So there are questions. From a legal standpoint, I think you have some flexibility in your reaching your determination. There is, it's ultimately up to y'all on the recommendation that you make to town council. But you've heard the presentations tonight, and it's y'all's.
So it's whatever we think is just a recommendation anyway.
Just a recommendation.
So it's not up to us.
So council, I imagine, will rely heavily upon your opinion, but it is not a definitive decision that you make here tonight. It's not going to determine how town council decides, but ultimately it could influence their decision.
Is there anything at a state or national level on the historic registry that would, if we were to keep the contributing structure status, and a National Register took it off for the same reason that it's not technically, that it is new construction, not an old structure. Maybe this is a question for Glenn.
Absolutely.
Would there be something at odds there that would?
So the structure, current structure, and the previous incarnation of the structure has already been determined to be not eligible for listing in the National Register, and it's currently not listed in the National Register. So
Was never?
It was never. It's currently not part of the National Historic District, nor will it be added to the National Historic District in the future.
And from the very limited amount of knowledge I have in this area, and there's not much in historic preservation law because it's a relatively, I mean, although not, it's a relatively new field law-wise. I mean, it's been decades and decades and decades, but it's really about more after 1960. So there's little law to rely on, case law. There are some examples of relocated structures that have retained historic status, but the applicant, foundation, and others are correct that once you begin that relocation process, that the rehabilitation process as well, the reconstruction, that it does lose some of the essential historic fabric that made it contributing in the first place. The question is whether this particular relocation, this particular reconstruction was of such an extent, at least in my opinion, to justify the removal of it from the contributing resource list.
Is there any other discussion here? Or if not, I guess I'd like to go one by one and see how people are feeling about how they would vote so that we can make a majority motion. Sure.
I think I already made my comments, but I would support removing it from the list.
Okay.
I kind of made my comments, and I probably would not.
Okay.
Would not.
Would not. Commissioner?
I need a minute. But feel free to go ahead and express your opinion, or you're waiting on me.
Trying to see if I'm the tiebreaker or not.
I think you got to remove it.
Yeah.
I hate saying that. But I think you have to.
It's still a great building as part of the fabric of the town, but what we're saving at this point is the skin and the aesthetic of the cottage that was there and the memories for the family. But from a integrity standpoint and kind of the historic register, I think it makes sense to remove it.
I guess what I'm caught up on is
of the town.
yeah, we have
What
the
about
discretion
the
to.
integrity of the history that has been here in Bluffton.
I think it will lose protection from being demolished, but that doesn't mean that it will be.
And from what I understand, there's no conditions from what we decide, right? We can't put a condition on it.
Correct, it's a town council
It's
decision.
just a recommendation to the town council. I hear all the professionals saying that it should be taken off based on a definition, but I think for me, we have the discretion to leave it on because we want to protect it, and that's how I think that would be. So I would move to deny. So
Do we have to do a formal vote?
we'll ask for a motion. Okay. Ask for a motion from either Commissioner Schmelter or Vice Chairwoman Frazier.
I move that we deny the recommendation to remove it from the historic as a contributing structure.
To not.
To not remove it.
So all in.
Before we do this, I just want to make sure that It is a motion to recommend the denial of the removal of the contributing resource status.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
Further discussion?
Then all in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All against?
Nay.
Reluctantly.
So the motion is approved 3-2 to deny the recommendation. I'm sorry? It was 3-2. So 3 moving to deny, 2 nay against that. Yes. All right. That concludes item number 2. We'll move on to the last item on the new agenda, on the new business, public project.
Good evening again, Commissioners. The last item that we have before us on the new business section here is a public project application. This is another application where you will be recommending rather than making a motion for approval or denial. So you'll either recommend approval or recommend denial of the application, or in theory, on this one, you can recommend approval with conditions should you feel that appropriate. As is stated in your packet, public projects which are located within the historic district come before the HPC for comment prior to being either approved, denied, or approved with conditions by the UDO administrator. In this case, they're the final review authority. The application that we have before us tonight is for improvements to Oyster Factory Park. This is a phase 2 of a project that you have seen before you, maybe not this full collective board here, when they did the parking improvements. So this is the river on this side of your screen here, and this is Bridge Street on this side here. This is Wharf Street, and then the Garvin House, it's about where my mouse is. So the previous version of this was from about this dashed line here all the way towards Bridge Street, where they reconfigured the parking. What they're proposing now is to make improvements to the park in the area between the existing pavilion and the staircase that leads down to the gravel parking lot of the Oyster Factory Park. What they're doing, while it will have substantial appearance of improvements, is not really all that much. They're putting back in stone where stone was. There was a crushed oyster rock mix that was in there, and they'll be filling it with some limestone. They have proposed to build a porch, I guess is the most appropriate word for it, or a continuation of the foundation, since this is just an open pavilion. That will be this portion here, and then they'll have some museum-style stairs that go down into the open area here. They're proposing to put a wood platform around the large oak in the center of the park, and a small platform where a band or a performer could set up where the performer or band already sets up, only now it will be a stable surface for them there. So that's a wood surface there. And then there are some pavers here should they need to expand beyond this. I believe it's 14 by 25 foot wood structure here. I have clarified with our capital improvement department. Charles Savino is here behind me to speak on behalf of the project and answer any questions that you all have, but they have indicated that because of the proximity of these trees, the piers for these will be hand dug to avoid the roots and make sure that those are protected. And the areas that are directly adjacent to the trees will be treated incredibly careful with the sidewalk, whether it's that the sidewalk is pulled in a bit, they use a paver rather than the poured concrete. I guess the tabby, or they pull it in a little bit from that in order to avoid root systems as they need to in the field based on where those are. So the big things that they're adding is the sidewalk that is there. There currently already is the tree and the stomped down area that will be now wood rather than just compacted dirt. And they'll be giving this area a refresh. So the plans that you have in your packet are accurate. I have These pictures here, while these are not images of exactly what will be there, because these are pictures obviously from elsewhere, this is kind of an idea of what they're looking at for the bandstand area here. It will not be this large because it's not an L shape, but it'll have probably a one step up or so. The permeable paver style here, the limestone that you'll see, this is, I believe, Palmetto Bluff that you're looking at here in that picnic area if you've ever been near the treehouse. And then the steps that they're proposing near the existing pavilion, just to kind of formalize that area a bit more and make it more usable for the special events that are there. They also will be installing some power pedestals, yeah, that's the right word. These little black dots down here, where the food trucks currently set up for special events, they will continue to do so, but in theory, that will reduce some of the noise from those, as they'll no longer need to use the generators, but we'll have a power source that is installed there. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Charles is here. The motion that you'll be making tonight will be either a recommendation of approval or a recommendation of denial or a recommendation of approval with conditions. And I've got idea of what that motion could look like here on the screen before you in a very formal Word document should you see one of these fit, or you could make changes to it, but this will give you a start.
Is there any presentation by the applicant, Charles?
I didn't prepare a formal presentation or anything for you guys tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions, though, that you may have about the project.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Small. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The Bahama limestone, is that going to live near live oak trees?
I'm sorry?
The Bahama limestone,
Yes,
is that
ma'am.
going to live like on or near the live oak? There was a key we were looking at, and it was a little unclear.
Right. So I'll try and do this with the mouse. So this is the main live oak tree that is kind of in the center oyster factory today.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the outskirts of the limits of the decking, if that makes any sense there. So your question is, will this limestone here kind of creep in underneath the decking to the tree? And the answer to that will be no. It's going to be confined along this edge here, so it won't go underneath the tree there.
Okay. Yeah, I just heard that limestone is not great for live oaks.
Yeah.
I believe the other areas we were looking at were here, and he did point out earlier that this will be plant material
Similar to what's in front of Town Hall, in front of those trees.
Yep.
So that's what that,
Yeah.
we looked at we were trying to find the cross-hatching for that area.
Yeah.
We found it.
Yep. So this is on page, let me get the page number here. I think it's 500, L500. And you can see here, this is, I think, the tree that we're referring to, and what we've designated this area as kind of a rain garden, an area to capture whatever stormwater that we're going to have to grade the site to capture the stormwater and store it on site. So that's that area there, and then we've got another similar area planned down here. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say it's a great enhancement to what's out there currently.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, looks great.
I was at the Oyster Factory this past weekend for an event, and this would make it so much better, especially without all the dirt.
Yes, ma'am.
Open-toed shoes.
Yes.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Other questions?
It's my understanding that you guys are going to do careful construction around the live oaks and consider maybe moving some of these sidewalks a little bit further away from the trunks as well.
Yes, we are. So as Katie mentioned, in particular, like this live oak tree here, one of the things we've discussed is, and it more of a field decision, is to move this sidewalk in some to get it away from the base of the tree. And then also, too, we're going to go back to the landscape architect and most likely put in as an alternate around where these trees are to put pavers. So we wouldn't have to pour any concrete adjacent or near the trees. We could just kind of stop short 10 feet or something like that and go with a paver.
Yeah, you did that right on Bridge Street around the big trees on.
That's right. Yeah, yes,
Boundary
ma'am.
and Bridge,
Similar.
yes.
So we would keep a tabby color just because everything at Oyster Factory is basically tabby color with oyster shell in it. So we wouldn't most likely have that kind of that red brick color that you see on Bridge Street. But yes, ma'am, same exact concept. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any other questions? Any staff comments? Okay. then I guess I'm looking for a motion.
I move we recommend approval to the UDO administrator for the site changes to Oyster Factory Park as shown in the submittal materials for DP-01-22-016299.
Second.
There's a second. Is there any discussion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and the motion's passed. Unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. On to the discussion portion. We have something new, Historic District Monthly Update.
We like to keep adding new things so you all don't get bored. No, I'm just teasing. But we are going to start incorporating this as just a quick discussion item. Mostly as an FYI, I probably won't even discuss it as in depth as I am today, just because it's the very first one. But this is a summary of the different site features or amendments that have come through the growth management department. Because you all do not review every single application for every little item that comes through the historic district down to the signs. That is something that has been handed off to staff to take care of. These are the items that have been reviewed and approved during the previous month. So mostly in this case, it is signs. So this is, it says roof company sign because it is a roof company, but it's actually a sign, not a roof that's been redone. There was a sign for 18 Bruin Road and for 5728 Guilford. They do have business licenses. They do meet the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. Everything is good to go on there, or we would not have approved it. And then the last one is that the construction of a brick garden wall to replace the non-historic wood picket fence in front of 82 Calhoun Street was approved as well. So those are the items. In case you have questions asked of you or you have questions for staff, we can either answer them in this form, or you all can give us a call, because this just gives you a breakdown of it since it's not really listed out very specifically anywhere else. Any questions?
Bruce would be happy. 'Cause I know
Bruce would be happy.
is not hearing about site features. You are able to find them online, but you have to do some digging. So.
You do have to do a little bit of digging,
Thank
so
you
we're
for
making a little chart here for you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? I guess I just want to clarify on the previous project, on the second agenda item, since I was the tying vote, the sort of thought, their logic behind it. I felt that the protection that we'd give it by leaving it a contributing structure outweighed the logic of it technically not meeting a specification. I didn't see enough burden in taking it off that made it worth denying it. Am I allowed to say that or no?
Well, I would urge caution on, relooking this applicant being gone and we're past it on the agenda.
Fair enough.
But I certainly understand you wanting to add your.
Yeah. In the future, I'll try and add that when the agenda item is relevant. So, anyways. All right, looking for a motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and meeting
Gavel
adjourned.
it.